The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with desperate voices speaking in dozens of alien languages. Ambassador Zylaxians, a tall, graceful being with purple skin and 4 arms, stood at the center of the chaos, trying to maintain order. His species, the Velnari, were known for their calm wisdom, but today his usual composure was cracking. "Silence," he called out, his translator making his words echo in perfect English, Mandarin, Klingon, and 50 other languages. "We must focus. The Devourers have taken another system. Kepler 442 is gone, 3 billion lives, consumed." A collective gasp filled the chamber. The Devourers were a machine race that appeared 50 years ago from the dark space between galaxies. They didn't negotiate, didn't communicate, didn't show mercy. They simply arrived, stripped planets of all resources and life, and moved on. 12 civilizations had already fallen. "The Defense Fleet reports the same result as always," continued Admiral Theknor, a crab-like being whose shell was decorated with military honors. "Our weapons barely scratch their ships. Our tactics are useless against enemies that feel no fear, no pain, no doubt." "Then what do you suggest?" snapped Counselor Yith, her tentacles writhing with frustration. "That we simply wait for death?" Ambassador Zylaxians pulled up a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked Devourer positions, and they were spreading like a cancer. "There is one option we haven't tried. Project Deathworld." The chamber fell silent. Project Deathworld was controversial, the idea of recruiting warriors from the galaxy's most dangerous planets. Most council members considered it barbaric. "You can't be serious," whispered Counselor Yith. Those savages would be worse than the Devourers themselves." "Would they?" Zylaxians challenged. "Our peaceful warriors fight with honor and nobility. They follow rules of engagement and worry about civilian casualties. The Devourers follow no rules. They show no mercy. Perhaps it's time we match their brutality with our own." Admiral Theknor's eye stalks swiveled nervously. "The intelligence reports on Deathworld species are disturbing. Take the humans from Sol 3, for example. Their planet is covered in natural disasters, earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, ice ages. Their oceans are full of monsters. Their continents crawl with predators. And the humans? They turned their entire world into a battleground, fighting wars for thousands of years." "Exactly," said Zylaxians. "They're survivors. They've faced extinction dozens of times and kept fighting. Their planet has been trying to kill them since they first stood upright, and they not only survived, they conquered it." The debate raged for hours, but in the end, desperation won. The vote was close, but Project Deathworld was approved. Messages were sent to the most dangerous worlds known to Council intelligence, Vex Prime, where gravity was 3 times normal and the natives had evolved natural body armor, Slag World, where volcanic activity was so constant that the surface was always molten, and Earth, the blue-green Deathworld in the Sol system. Captain Sarachin stood on the bridge of the Nightmare, watching Earth grow smaller in the view screen. Her ship was humanity's answer to the Council's call, a kilometer-long monster of steel and weapons that looked more like an armored fortress than a spacecraft. Unlike the sleek, elegant ships the Council used, the Nightmare was built for war. Every surface bristled with guns, missile pods, and armor plating. It looked like exactly what it was, a ship designed by a species that had been fighting for its survival for millennia. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Rodriguez from the communications station. "We're getting another message from the Council fleet. They want to know our estimated arrival time." Sarah smiled grimly. She was 35 years old, with short black hair and scars on her hands from a dozen battles. She'd fought in the resource wars on Earth, the Mars Colony Rebellion, and the Jupiter Station incident. The Council had asked for heroes, but what they were getting was something else entirely. "Tell them we'll be there when we get there," she said. "And remind them that we're not their heroes. We're their problem solvers." Her crew laughed. They were all volunteers, all veterans of Earth's endless conflicts. There was Sergeant Major Jackson, a mountain of a man whose arms were covered in tattoos representing every battle he'd fought. Chief Engineer Patel, who could make weapons out of spare parts and chewing gum. Dr. Martinez, whose medical training included battlefield surgery and combat psychology. They weren't noble warriors fighting for glory, they were professionals who understood that sometimes, violence was the only solution. "Captain," said Navigator Kim, "long-range sensors are picking up the Council fleet." "My God, there are thousands of ships." Sarah nodded. The Council had assembled the largest fleet in galactic history, representatives from hundreds of worlds, all united against the Devourer threat. But she'd read the intelligence reports. For all their numbers, the Council fleet had never won a single major battle against the Devourers. "Helm, take us to the designated coordinates," she ordered. "And broadcast our identification on all frequencies. Let's introduce ourselves properly." The Council flagship Harmony was a marvel of engineering, a crystalline structure 2 kilometers long that seemed to grow rather than be built. Ambassador Zylaxians waited in the docking bay as the human shuttle approached, wondering if he'd made a terrible mistake. The shuttle was like the humans themselves, ugly, functional, and intimidating. It looked more like a weapons platform than a transport, with gun turrets and armor plating covering every surface. When it landed, the docking bay filled with the sound of mechanical systems that seemed designed to be as loud and aggressive as possible. The airlock opened with a hiss of pressurized air, and Captain Zylaxians stepped out. Zylaxians had seen humans in the intelligence reports, but meeting one in person was different. She was smaller than he'd expected. Most Council species were taller than humans, but there was something about the way she moved that spoke of controlled violence. Her eyes constantly scanned the room, looking for threats. Her hand rested casually near her sidearm. "Ambassador Zylaxians," she said, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture. "I'm Captain Chen. Thanks for the invitation to your war." Zylaxians carefully shook her hand, noting the calluses and scars. "Captain Chen, welcome to the Galactic Defense Fleet. I must admit, we weren't entirely sure what to expect from your species." Sarah smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. "Yeah, I bet. I've been reading your intelligence files on us during the trip. Violent, unpredictable, dangerous to themselves and others. You make us sound like monsters. Are you not?" The question slipped up before Zylaxians could stop himself. Sarah's smile widened. "Ambassador, where I come from, monsters are what we fight for breakfast. You want to see the difference between humans and monsters? Just wait until we meet these devourers of yours." Zylaxians led her through the ship, past crowds of alien crew members who stared at the human with mixtures of curiosity and fear. The Harmony was designed for beauty and efficiency, with flowing curves and soft lighting. Everything was peaceful, organized, civilized. "Your ship is very pretty," Sarah commented. "How does it handle in combat?" "The Harmony is equipped with the most advanced defensive systems in the galaxy," Zylaxians replied proudly. "Quantum shields, probability scramblers, temporal displacement fields." "Aha! How much armor?" "Armor? Well, the defensive systems make armor unnecessary." "Right." Sarah stopped walking and looked directly at him. "Ambassador, let me explain something about humans. We come from a world where everything is trying to kill us. The weather, the animals, the plants, the other humans, even the planet itself. We learned a long time ago that the best defense is usually a good offense, and when that doesn't work, you need enough armor to survive whatever's coming next." They reached the conference room where Admiral Theknor and other Council leaders were waiting. Sarah looked around the room at the dozens of alien species represented, beings of crystalline energy, creatures that looked like walking plants, entities that existed partially in other dimensions. "So," she said, settling into a chair that was clearly not designed for human anatomy, "tell me about these devourers." Admiral Theknor activated a holographic display. "They appeared 50 years ago from the void between galaxies. We don't know where they came from or what they want, beyond consuming everything in their path." The display showed ship designs unlike anything in Council fleets. The Devourer vessels were massive, angular things that looked like mechanical predators. They had no windows, no obvious crew quarters, no wasted space for comfort or aesthetics. They were pure function machines designed to kill and consume. "They show no interest in communication," continued the Admiral. No response to surrender offers. They simply arrive, destroy all resistance, strip the planet of resources, and move on. Sarah studied the tactical data. What's their usual attack pattern? They establish orbital superiority first, destroying any defending fleets. Then they deploy harvester machines to the surface. These machines consume everything: buildings, plants, animals, people. Within days, the planet is reduced to bare rock. How many ships in a typical devourer fleet? Anywhere from 50 to 500 vessels, depending on the target's strategic value. Sarah whistled softly. And your losses against them? Admiral Theknor's shell clicked nervously. In 50 engagements, we have achieved tactical victory exactly 0 times. Our casualties are significant. I see. Sarah leaned back in her chair, thinking. Ambassador, can you show me detailed recordings of these battles? For the next 3 hours, Sarah watched battle after battle. The pattern was always the same. Council fleets would engage the Devourers with careful, measured tactics. They would try to minimize casualties, protect civilian ships, and maintain formation discipline. The Devourers would simply smash through them like a hammer through glass. There's your problem, Sarah finally said. What do you mean? Asked Zylaxians. You're fighting a war, but you're still thinking like peacekeepers. You worry about honor, about minimizing casualties, about fighting fair. The Devourers don't care about any of that. They're not trying to win battles, they're trying to exterminate you. And what would you do differently? Admiral Theknor asked. Sarah's smile was cold as winter. We'd fight like humans. The next battle came sooner than expected. Long-range sensors detected a Devourer fleet heading for the Altair system, home to 6 billion Council citizens who had nowhere to run. The combined Council human fleet moved to intercept, but Sarah noticed immediately that something was wrong with their formation. The Council ships were arranged in neat, orderly lines, with the Nightmare assigned to the rear guard position. Captain, reported Lieutenant Rodriguez, Admiral Theknor is ordering us to maintain position and await further instructions. Sarah keyed the communications system. Admiral, this is Captain Chen. My ship is built for close combat, not sitting in the back watching the fight. Captain Chen, came the Admiral's clicking reply, you are unfamiliar with our tactical doctrines. Please maintain position until you can be properly integrated into our battle plan. Sarah looked at her crew. Sergeant Major Jackson shook his head in disgust. They're gonna get slaughtered, Captain. Yeah, they are. Sarah made her decision. Helm, break formation. Take us to the front of the fleet. Captain. Admiral Theknor's voice crackled over the comm. You are violating fleet protocols. Admiral, Sarah replied calmly, with respect, your protocols have lost every single battle for 50 years. Maybe it's time to try something different. The Devourer fleet appeared on long-range sensors, 200 ships in a wedge formation, moving at maximum speed toward the Council fleet. They didn't slow down, didn't attempt communication, didn't even acknowledge the Council's surrender offers. They just kept coming. All ships, Admiral Theknor ordered, assume defensive formation. Prepare to engage at maximum range. Sarah shook her head. Tactical, what's the effective range of our main guns? Point blank to 5,000 kilometers, Captain. But the Council ships will start firing at 50,000 kilometers. Of course they will. Sarah keyed the fleet frequency. All ships, this is Captain Chen. I'm going to show you how humans fight. Try to keep up. The Nightmare accelerated toward the Devourer fleet at maximum speed. Unlike the Council ships, which were trying to maintain safe distances and orderly formations, Sarah's ship plunged straight into the heart of the enemy formation. Contact in 30 seconds, reported the tactical officer. Enemy ships are targeting us. Good, Sarah said. That means they're not targeting the Council ships. All weapons, free fire. Let's see what these things are made of. The Nightmare was designed for exactly this kind of fight. Instead of the Council's energy weapons that took time to charge and required precise targeting, the human ship carried railguns, missile systems, and plasma cannons, weapons designed to do maximum damage as quickly as possible. The first Devourer ship to get within range simply disappeared in a ball of plasma and twisted metal. The second one lasted long enough to return fire before it too was reduced to debris. "Damage report," Sarah called out. "Hull breach on Deck 7, but the armor held." "Casualties minimal," reported Dr. Martinez. Sarah grinned. This was what the Nightmare was built for, taking hits and dishing out more in return. The Council ships were built like works of art, the Nightmare was built like a weapon. "Captain." Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice was excited. "The Council fleet is engaging. They're following our lead." Sarah looked at the tactical display. The neat, orderly Council formation was breaking apart as individual ships moved to support the human vessel. More importantly, they were finally fighting at close range where their weapons could do real damage. "Admiral Theknor to Captain Shen," came the clicking voice over the comm. "Your tactics are unorthodox." "Admiral," Sarah replied as she watched another Devourer ship explode. "On Earth, we have a saying, if you're not cheating, you're not trying hard enough." The battle raged for 2 hours. By the end, the Devourer fleet was scattered debris, and the Council fleet had won its first major victory in 50 years. The victory celebration aboard the Harmony was unlike anything the Council had experienced in decades. For the first time since the Devourer War began, they had something to cheer about. Ambassador Zylaxians found Captain Shen on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. She wasn't celebrating with the others, instead, she seemed lost in thought. "Captain," he said, "the entire Council owes you a debt of gratitude. Your tactics were effective." Sarah didn't turn around. "We lost 18 ships today, Ambassador. That's 18 crews who aren't going home. But we saved 6 billion lives on Altair 4. Surely that." "Don't." Sarah's voice was sharp. "Don't tell me about acceptable losses or the greater good. Every person who died today had a family, friends, people who loved them. The fact that we had to sacrifice them to win doesn't make me feel better about it." Zylaxians was confused. "But this is what war is like. Sacrifice is necessary for victory." Sarah finally turned to face him. "Ambassador, do you know what the difference is between your people and mine? Please, enlighten me. Your people fight wars because you have to. My people fight wars because we're good at it. But we never, ever forget what war actually costs." She walked past him toward the door, then stopped. "The Devourers aren't going to quit just because we won one battle. They're going to come back harder, nastier, and more determined. Are you prepared for what that's going to look like?" Before Zylaxians could answer, the ship's alert system activated. "All senior staff to the command center immediately." They hurried to the command center, where Admiral Theknor was staring at a tactical display with obvious fear. "Long-range sensors have detected multiple Devourer fleets converging on our position. Estimated strength, over 2,000 ships." The room fell silent. 2,000 ships was more than the entire Council defense fleet. "How long until they arrive?" Sarah asked. 14 hours, the Admiral replied. Sarah studied the tactical display. The Devourer fleets were approaching from 3 different directions, clearly intending to surround and destroy the Council fleet. "We need to evacuate immediately," said Counselor Yith. "There's no way we can fight that many ships." "Run where?" Sarah asked. "They'll just follow us to the next system and kill everyone there instead." "Then what do you suggest?" Zylaxians asked. Sarah smiled, but this time it wasn't cold, it was absolutely terrifying. "Ambassador, I suggest we show these Devourers why humans are the apex predators on our planet." "You want to do what?" Admiral Theknor's eye stalks were trembling with shock. Sarah stood at the center of the command room, a holographic display showing her battle plan. It was, by any rational standard, completely insane. "It's simple," she explained. "We can't outrun them, and we can't outgun them. So we're going to outsmart them. By flying directly into their formation and detonating nuclear weapons inside our own ships." Counselor Yitha's tentacles were writhing with agitation. That's not tactics, that's suicide. It's called a kamikaze attack, Sarah said calmly. And no, we're not going to die. We're going to make them think we're going to die, and then we're going to kill them while they're not paying attention. She manipulated the hologram, showing the 3 approaching Devourer fleets. They're expecting us to either run or fight conventionally. They're not expecting us to weaponize our own ships. Ambassador Zylaxians studied the plan carefully. Captain, this requires perfect timing. If any part of this fails, then we're all dead, Sarah finished. But if we do nothing, we're all dead anyway. At least this way, we take them with us. The plan was typically human in its audacity. The Council fleet would split into 3 groups, each targeting one of the Devourer fleets. But instead of engaging in normal combat, they would accelerate to ramming speed while broadcasting surrender messages. The Devourers, thinking the Council ships were attempting desperate kamikaze attacks, would focus on destroying them before impact. What they wouldn't expect was that each kamikaze ship would actually be a missile packed with enough nuclear explosives to vaporize anything within 1,000 kilometers, and piloted by sophisticated AI systems that would detonate at the optimal moment for maximum damage. The real Council fleet would be hidden behind each group of decoy ships, using their sensor shadows to approach undetected. When the decoys detonated, the real ships would emerge from the chaos and attack the confused and damaged Devourer fleets. This plan requires us to sacrifice over 300 ships, Admiral Theknor pointed out. Empty ships, Sarah corrected. We'll transfer all crews to the remaining vessels. Yes, it'll be crowded, but everyone lives. And if the deception fails? Sarah's expression was grim. Then we hope the afterlife has good health insurance. The preparations took 12 hours. 300 Council ships were stripped of their crews and loaded with every nuclear weapon the fleet could spare. Advanced AI systems were installed to pilot the ships and detonate the weapons at precisely the right moment. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Nightmare, watching the countdown timer. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. They were scared, she could see it in their faces, but they were also determined. Captain, reported Lieutenant Rodriguez, all decoy ships report ready. AI systems are online and responding normally. Fleet status? All real ships are in position behind the decoy groups. Crews are reporting ready, though life support is stressed due to overcrowding. Sarah nodded. The Council ships hadn't been designed to carry multiple crews, but her people were used to making do with less than ideal conditions. Long-range sensors show Devourer fleets at 2 hours to contact, reported the tactical officer. Sarah opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships, this is Captain Chen. I know this plan sounds crazy. Hell, it is crazy. But crazy is what humans do best. In 2 hours, we're going to show the Devourers why you don't mess with a species that evolved on a death world. She paused, looking around at her crew. For those of you who are new to fighting alongside humans, let me explain something. We're not the strongest species in the galaxy. We're not the smartest, or the fastest, or the most advanced. But we are the most stubborn. When something tries to kill us, we don't just fight back, we make sure it regrets ever being born. The fleet began to move. 3 groups of ships, each led by a squadron of nuclear-armed decoys, accelerated toward the approaching Devourer fleets. Contact in 30 minutes, reported the tactical officer. Sarah could see the Devourer ships on the long-range display now, dark, angular shapes that moved with mechanical precision. There were so many of them that they looked like a swarm of insects. Communications, start broadcasting surrender messages from the decoy ships. Make it sound desperate. Yes, Captain. The messages went out on all frequencies, pleas for mercy, offers to surrender, desperate bargaining attempts. The Devourers, as expected, ignored them completely. Contact in 10 minutes. Devourer ships are changing formation, they're moving to intercept the decoy groups. Sarah smiled grimly. The plan was working. The Devourers saw what appeared to be desperate suicide attacks and were positioning themselves to destroy the kamikaze ships before they could reach their targets. 5 minutes to contact. All decoy ships report systems nominal. The tension on the bridge was thick enough to cut with a knife. Everyone knew that the next few minutes would determine whether the Council would survive or be wiped out entirely. Contact. Devourer ships are firing on the decoy groups. On the tactical display, Sarah watched as hundreds of enemy weapons targeted the approaching Council ships. The decoys were taking massive damage, but their AI systems kept them on course. First decoy group at optimal detonation point, reported the tactical officer. Execute, Sarah ordered. The first nuclear explosion lit up space like a newborn star. The decoy ships, packed with fusion warheads, detonated simultaneously in the heart of the Northern Devourer fleet. The blast was visible from 100,000 kilometers away, a sphere of pure energy that expanded outward at a significant fraction of light speed. When the light faded, a quarter of the Northern Devourer fleet was simply gone. Vaporized. The remaining ships were damaged, confused, and completely unprepared for what came next. Real fleet, engage! Sarah ordered. The Nightmare and her escorts burst from the sensor shadow of the explosion, weapons blazing. The Devourer ships, still reeling from the nuclear blast, couldn't respond effectively to the sudden attack. Second detonation group at optimal position, reported the tactical officer. Execute. Another star bloomed in space as the Western Devourer fleet was caught in a nuclear inferno. This time, Sarah was close enough to see individual enemy ships being torn apart by the blast wave. Third group in position. Execute. The final explosion completed the trap. 3 Devourer fleets, totaling over 2,000 ships, had been reduced to scattered survivors in the space of 3 minutes. All ships, this is Captain Chen, Sarah announced over the fleet communications. Hunt them down. I don't want a single Devourer ship escaping to report what happened here. The battle that followed was less a fight than a massacre. The surviving Devourer ships, damaged and disorganized, were hunted down one by the Council fleet. For the first time in 50 years, the Devourers were the ones running in fear. When it was over, the tactical display showed empty space where 3 enemy fleets had been. The debris field stretched across millions of cubic kilometers, the remains of over 2,000 Devourer ships. Final count, reported the tactical officer. Enemy casualties, 2,047 ships destroyed, estimated 0 survivors. Our casualties, 300 decoy ships, deliberately sacrificed. Personnel casualties, 0. The bridge erupted in cheers. They had won not just a battle, but the first decisive victory in the war. 3 months later, the war was over. The Devourers, for all their technological superiority, couldn't adapt to human tactics. They were machines, following programming that had worked against peaceful civilizations but failed catastrophically against opponents who fought without rules or honor. The final battle took place in the void between galaxies, where the Devourer main fleet was attempting to retreat to whatever dark place they had come from. The combined Human Council fleet cornered them there and destroyed them utterly, using tactics that would have horrified both sides' ancestors. Captain Zylaxians stood in the Galactic Council chambers, wearing her dress uniform and feeling distinctly uncomfortable. The ceremony was meant to honor her and her crew, but she would have preferred to be back on her ship. Captain Chen, Ambassador Zylaxians announced to the assembled delegates, by unanimous vote of the Galactic Council, you and your crew are hereby awarded the Star of Unity, the highest honor we can bestow. Polite applause filled the chamber. Sarah stepped forward to accept the medal, a beautiful crystal sculpture that probably cost more than her ship. Thank you, Ambassador, she said. But I want to make something clear to everyone here. The chamber fell silent. Humans didn't save you because we're heroes. We saved you because it was the right thing to do. But more importantly, we showed you that you could save yourselves. You have everything you need to defend your homes, the technology, the numbers, the intelligence. What you lacked was the will to use them. She held up the medal, letting the light catch its faceted surface. Don't let this victory make you soft again. Don't go back to thinking that peace means you can ignore the possibility of war. Because somewhere out there, in the dark between the stars, there's always going to be something that wants to take what you've built. She set the medal down on the podium. The real honor isn't this crystal. The real honor is knowing that when the next threat comes, and there will be a next threat, you'll be ready for it. Ambassador Zylaxians stepped forward. And will humans be there to help us? Sarah smiled. Ambassador, humans have a saying, once you're family forever. The Galactic Council took a chance on a bunch of violent Deathworlders when you were desperate. Now that we've bled together, fought together, and won together, you're stuck with us. The applause that followed was not polite, it was thunderous, coming from beings who had learned the difference between heroes and survivors, and who now understood that sometimes, you needed both. 5 years after the end of the Devourer War, Ambassador Zylaxians stood in the observation deck of the newest addition to the Galactic Defense Force, the Deathworld Academy. Built in orbit around Earth, the Academy was where the galaxy's peaceful species came to learn how to fight like Deathworlders. The curriculum included everything from basic combat tactics to advanced survival skills, taught by instructors from the most dangerous worlds known to Council intelligence. Captain Sarah Chen, now Admiral Chen, approached him with 2 cups of that horrible human beverage they called coffee. Thinking about the old days, she asked. Thinking about how much has changed, Zylaxians replied. 5 years ago, we were afraid of you. Now, half the Council sends their military officers here for training. Sarah laughed. And the other half? The other half sends their children. They watched through the observation window as a mixed group of young beings, humans, Velnari, Kextai, and others, practiced combat maneuvers under the guidance of Sergeant Major Jackson, who was somehow even more intimidating at 60 than he had been at 40. You know, Sarah said thoughtfully, when we first met, you asked me if humans were monsters. I remember. I've been thinking about that question. The answer is yes, we are monsters. But we're monsters that choose to protect instead of destroy. We're monsters that fight other monsters so that peaceful people can stay peaceful. Zylaxians considered this. And you're teaching our people to be monsters too? We're teaching them to recognize that sometimes, the choice isn't between good and evil. Sometimes, the choice is between being a monster and being a victim. Sarah finished her coffee and set the cup down. The universe is a dangerous place, Ambassador. It's full of things that want to hurt you, kill you, or eat you. But it's also full of beauty, wonder, and hope. The trick is being strong enough to protect the good stuff from the bad stuff. A new alert came over the Academy's communication system, reports of strange signals from the galactic edge, possibly indicating another threat from outside known space. Sarah and Zylaxians looked at each other and smiled. Ready for another adventure? Sarah asked. With Earth's Deathworlders by our side? Zylaxians replied. Bring it on. And in the training halls below, a new generation of warriors, peaceful beings learning to fight like apex predators, prepared to face whatever the universe might throw at them next. Because sometimes, when you call for heroes, what you really need are monsters who fight for the right side.